Why are anime endings so disappointing? In animes, it usually feels like the series can be one of the best series ever made, and it can have a really bad ending. Whether that be just the last few episodes that are bad, the entire final plot point being bad, or the entire last season being bad, usually the front or middle half of a show, depending how long it is the best part, with the ending being mediocre at best. I think that there's really two main reasons why anime endings usually fall flat. One of them, I think, is that when animes are longer, there's more hype build up to how the series is going to end. So when animes do end, people's expectations usually are built up to the point that no matter what the ending is or how good it is, it still falls flat because there's too high of expectations, which is sometimes unavoidable. But when a series builds up to the climax being like the highest point of the series, and it's super built up over the whole series, and then it's just mediocre, it will look so much worse than if it was just another part of the series. But because it's the ending that was so heavily built up to, it falls much flatter than it would normally. I feel like shorter series don't have as much problem with the ending because they're usually not as overhyped as much, because there hasn't been as long of time to try to figure out how the show is going to end, like a longer show that's 100 or more episodes that you're just trying to think of how is it going to end, so it usually falls flatter on a longer series than on a shorter series. And then, of course, sometimes some fans, especially like super fans, can never be satisfied with how the show ends because that's just the way they are. But I do think that the biggest issue is hype, because some long series don't have that problem where they're super overhyped, but I think series that are overhyped have the problems with ending well the most out of any sort of show, because shows that I go into with really high expectations usually disappoint me, but shows that I go into with no or low expectations usually don't. So I think like the expectations and the amount of hype surrounding it is the main issue with how people perceive the ending. One of the reasons why I think this is true is because I went into Black Clover, my favorite anime, with very low expectations because I'd only heard really bad things about it. But shows that I went into with higher expectations, namely Steins Gate, I didn't like all that much. I had always heard that it was this amazing anime that was great with plot twists, and it never got good enough to me to be warranting all the hype. And that's the thing, is it could still be a good show, but if it doesn't warrant all the hype behind it, people will dumb down how good the show is because it doesn't live up to all the hype. Which is a reason why I had issues with Demon Slayer, because people hype it up so much to be such a good show, and it's alright. Another reason that hype sometimes makes a show fall flat is something like The Promised Neverland, which is where the entire last season was, I've heard, is really bad. I read the manga because by the time I saw Promised Neverland, I watched the first season and then I read the manga for the rest of it. So by the time I had seen the first season, the anime had already finished, and I had only heard bad things about how it finished, so I decided, well, I'm just not going to get involved because I didn't hear very good stuff about the end. But the reason why The Promised Neverland's last season fell so flat, even though I've heard that it was just really, really bad in general, is probably because the first season was so good. I saw the first season and I really liked it. That's why I continued to read it. So the reason why the next season felt so flat in comparison is because the first season was so good. Because imagine if the last season of Attack on Titan was really, really bad. It would have fell so much flatter than if another random series' season was bad, because Attack on Titan is known to be such a good show. So if its last season would have been bad, people would have just been up in arms versus another show being even worse because of the hype Attack on Titan has behind it, and it already have a reputation for being a good show. So if it just suddenly fell off, then people would be more upset. But again, with Attack on Titan, people didn't really like the ending of that either. So what makes a bad ending versus a good ending? And keep in mind that when I was looking up for examples for a good ending, it was so much harder for me to think of an anime that I've seen or I've heard people talk about that was actually good. There's not that many people, like, endings that people didn't really have much bad stuff to say about. It's really hard to find, which is why I think that bad anime endings is such a problem. Because you could have the greatest anime in the world and then it ends terribly. I think usually an ending is better for an anime when it's like Full Metal Alchemist or One Piece, where the whole show is thought out before it's actually made. Like, unlike Naruto or Dragon Ball, where it was just made up on the spot. And I also feel like a lot of the reasons why shows' endings are bad is because they don't know when to quit. I've thought this so many times, where shows go on for way past their expiration date, and they just get worse and worse and worse. And when the show inevitably ends, it's had nothing else to give for like years by the point it finally ends, so of course it's not going to be good. So I'm going to talk about some shows with bad endings and shows with good endings. In massive quotes, don't kill me. I think some shows where people agree with me that they have not very good endings. One of them would definitely be Naruto Shippuden, because we all know that didn't end the best. I'm not someone who's super harsh on stuff, but we all know what happened with that ending. We all know what happened. Then we got Promised Neverland, whose last season wasn't really up to par at all, and I'm pretty sure from what I heard the actual ending was a slideshow, so that's always wonderful to hear. I haven't heard that many people comment on the ending to Bleach. I thought that it was very, honestly, for what they had to work with at the time, the ending wasn't that bad. It was just the series is over. It almost just feels like it's a show or a manga where the funding just got cut and they had to cut it and end it right there. I was just kind of like, wait, what? It's over? And I'm someone who's always acutely aware of how many chapters I have left, and even I was like, it's over? I don't understand. What happened? I've heard that the Soul Eater ending is bad as well. Typical power of friendship. I don't know, I never finished it. They took it off Netflix before I could finish it. I'm still salty about that. As someone who watched Another, I didn't think that Another had a very good ending, but I don't think that Another was that much of an amazing show overall, regardless, so... I also heard that the ending of Yu Yu Hakusho wasn't very good. I haven't watched very much of Yu Yu Hakusho, so I can't say one way or another. That's just what I've heard. And when I looked for good anime endings, I could only think of like 2 or 3, and I really had to think. I could have put a whole lot more for bad anime endings. I was just looking for like the worst. The only 3 I could think of people actually saying that it's good is Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, Mob Psycho 100, and Code Geass. Now, I haven't watched Code Geass, and I haven't watched the last season of Mob Psycho 100, so I can't really say for the endings, but I don't think I had any problems with how Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood ended. I think they did it very well. So, overall, I think that the reason why some anime endings are bad is because people usually just wing it when they're starting their anime series, and they just don't expect it to take off, so they don't think of how to finish the series or how to even continue the series, and it ends up getting like really muddied, because that's what happened with Dragon Ball, that's what happened to a degree with Naruto, and I just think that the best series are the ones where people know that they're going to finish the whole series and like write all the series out before it's actually done, like Full Metal Alchemist, Brotherhood, and One Piece. So anyways, that's my 2 cents. See ya.